while he gets back, uh, is he back? Nope. While he gets back, for me, I'm not a, I, I'm going to sound mean and everything, but well, particularly the teams I've had the privilege to coach. First of all, you committed. I mean, you're there. Those guys already know that. Those girls already know that. MPL or whatever, things like that, GA and things. But for me, there has to be. I don't guarantee playtime based on attendance and performance. You know what I mean? So for me, so if they're gonna not show up to a practice and all of a sudden show up to the game, voila, you know what I mean? So it's just something that I practice. But Blake has mentioned something in regards to that, but I'm a firm believer that I can't. If there's somebody that's coming to practice every single time, coming to all three practices, and you got one person that only showed up to maybe 40 minutes of one. I mean, like 35 minutes of one, and then comes to the game and expects full time. So I have to give that person time and take it away from somebody that's been in practice. I don't think that's fair. I won't do it.
I think that's a fair policy as long as it's applied evenly across
Absolutely.
all
Absolutely.
people, despite
Absolutely.
whatever level they play at.
Yeah. I mean, I've
I've
had
seen
my,
that. I've seen it go, both ways where sometimes it gets applied evenly, and then some teams, oh, suddenly you're in a big match, and well, that that starter that didn't show up for a week gets to start and play,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. That,
There's the
no,
other problem too with our numbers situation that we've had is the desire to implement something like that is kind of impossible unless that would put you playing with 8 players. So it's kind of tricky. But I obviously, as putting on a coaching hat, communication is the best
well, for me, I
thing
would,
about that. But like putting on a parent hat, there's a lot of different like things that go into that, right? And different ways that that's seen.
yeah. I would, I mean, but the thing about it for me, it's like you establish those things at the beginning with parent meetings and stuff like that. Here's the expectation on attendance. I mean, that's for me. That's for me, Jessica. And then you establish that and stuff, and you let them know. So if you see somebody that's not been coming to practices, then all of a sudden you're making your phone call by Thursday to the player you may need to borrow, and making sure that the calendars are clear for him to come play. And then all of a sudden you bring him on, and that way you have that player already and ready to go, and why the reason she's there. So when the other player shows up, you weren't there at practice. I brought her to take your spot because you didn't show up to practice. So she's going to get more play time than you, certainly. I mean, I've done that before. And going back to you, Graf, I've done the same thing. My player showed up late. My top player showed up late to a game, and I played with 9 players, and I sat them down. They didn't play the whole game because they showed up late to the game at the start of a little bit after the start of the game, and I sat them down. And they were the best players on the team, and we
You
still
know,
won.
well, so just a little bit on that. It's tricky, as Jess pointed out, because kids don't control their own schedules, right? They don't drive themselves to practice. And so punishing children for the behaviors of their parents is a little bit challenging. That being said, there are girls who have tons of agency in this space who are making their own choices, and that's also fine. What might help with the things like RSVPing on whatever engine we're
Yes.
using going forward. And the communication piece is, like a couple of us folks are monitoring the rosters, and we're like, oh dang, we know we only have 10, and then we're texting the coach or whoever on Wednesday night being like, hey, are y'all working on this? And they're like, oh, we're totally working on this. But I gotta say, like, we don't know that. And everybody's great, everybody's wonderful, but the communication goes all the ways. And so I'm not sure that I'm not sure that it's so widely known that when the rosters look thin, especially if you're not in the engine or the app or whatever, and you can't see that somebody else's roster is thin, like you don't know that your actions have these domino effects. You know what I mean? And so I hear what you're saying. Communication goes both ways. That is a huge message that should continue on and on and on, and should be at like a club level. Like if you do not RSVP in the app, at all levels, this is going to be the consequence. And it's a totally an idle threat. I know that. But like, if they hear on the '09 boys team that coach is benching kids because they're not RSVPing, like that message spreads. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, when you don't call me and I call that a no-show, right? But if players tell me that, hey, coach, I'm not going to make practices, especially coming from the players themselves. I'm talking about older ones, of course, but it'd be even better if it was from the younger ones, because you're teaching them the responsibility, right? And that's part of our values. That's part of our mission. That's part of our value. I mean, our vision statement is to not only make better players, but make better people. So
Yeah.
asking a little player to kind of report that, I mean, that's fantastic. I'm not going to hold that to him. No way am I going to hold it to him, because he called. He was responsible enough to call. So that's kind of the way I look at it. I know it sounds a little aggressive, but that's kind of the way I do it. Plus, at the level that I was coaching at, this is a little different, so I have to kind of modify my expectations here. But yeah, I understand it, and it could send a message. But it also, I think, it's a double-edged sword. It could send a positive message saying, "Hey, listen, he means business. You got to show up to practice." So you just got to kind of wait and see what happens.
I'm completely agreeing with you. I think all I'm saying is I'm encouraging it at a values level for the entire club,
Mhm.
so that everybody knows, like, hey, this is this is a professional courtesy, that everybody shows up when they're supposed to show up. This is not just this convenient thing. You know what I mean? Like that we're teaching our children how to communicate with respect,
That's right.
and maybe professionalism is not the word, but like with respect. And this is what we do in this community because we value this. And one way that we show that we respect is all of the teams are doing this. And it's not like little tiny fiefdoms of coaches on teams, is I think maybe what I'm trying to say. And
Mhm.
not that coaches are doing that, but culturally speaking, everybody is exceptional, right? Everybody gets anyway. I'm gonna mute myself.
I understand what you're saying, Devin. And it should be something that we should be doing as a club. Period. I get it. I understand.
I do have a logistics question, and this is just coming from I'm gonna take one for the Corvallis parents here. I understand that it's we've got kids coming from all locations and we're driving and stuff, but we are driving to Albany all the time. And I understand that there are field shortages, but is there anything that is happening where we potentially may not have to drive to Albany twice a week or 3 times a week, depending on when and where games are?
I think Jessica might have more answers for me. I mean, more answers for you, but as far as I know, it depends on the availability of fields, right? Um, so I think that's kind of where it's kind of tight. The schools here are very I mean, compared to where, I mean, they're very kind of strict about using their fields. I mean, they say they're using them, but I drive by the high schools a lot and there's nobody using them. But we don't have any control over that. But we have limited on field space, and so we're trying to maximize what we can with the field that we do. And unfortunately, right now, as far as I'm understanding, is that we have the Y is the best place that we have as far as financially for the club, and the contract that we have with them. Actually, Bryce is here. That's right. But that's kind of the issue. We have Corvallis Park. Jessica that knows this park.
Crystal Lake.
Crystal Lake that we're using, but that's only going to be limited, right? And the conditions of that park, from what I saw, tall grass. It's about as high as the little kid's knees. You know what I mean? So it's not ideal, you know what I mean? But
It's a cow
um,
pasture.
yeah, so like I said, it's not because we're not trying, it's just that the availability of fields and the restrictions that you have here for school facility use, it's pretty tight. You know what I mean? And we're trying to work with the Y to get more, but they have us on a pinching time as well too, because the other field that we have there at the Y is being used by baseball, flag football, lacrosse. So there's other sports that we can't occupy there. But as far as a place in Corvallis, that's the only one I know right now.
Which let me piggyback off of that, Victor. I'm the one who chases down all the field availability for the club. When we hit warm spell, like summer, spring, summer, and then early fall, that's when we get the most access to Corvallis fields because we have access to grass. But the problem is once the weather turns nasty and wet, then we can't use grass fields anymore, like the grass fields at CV, the grass field at Crystal Lake. And so those are the fields we primarily have access to because as time goes on, Crescent Valley and Corvallis High School both have increasing usage of their winter and spring sports. Lacrosse, their lacrosse teams and their baseball, softball teams are taking up more and more space on the turf fields instead of on the grass fields. So we don't have any concrete answers as to whether that's going to change anytime soon. We're looking into getting some support for a grant and some potential to start fundraising for a turf field in Corvallis that we'd be able to be a part of and be able to help push that process forward because I would very much like to see more practice, more games in Corvallis and a location we can get. Corvallis, we've got some availability at Crescent Valley, but Corvallis High School has very, very, very limited availability because of their other sporting programs. So we are working on it. I won't say we're necessarily working on it actively. We are actively engaged in the process when the opportunity for applying for these grants and being a part of this fundraising initiative comes about. We have a committee on the board, the Corvallis Fields Committee, that is checking in periodically, trying to make plans to help find fields in Corvallis and to be a part of this grant writing and fundraising process. So we're always looking for people to join this committee because we need more fields in Corvallis and we need people to help push this process forward. So that's the long answer. We get lots of availability in the summer when we have access to the grass fields, but as things get wet, we lose availability in the high schools because their programming comes first and they take over the turf. So we just need more turf in Corvallis. And if we could have a bunch of turf, then I think that'd solve everybody's problems. But yeah, that's kind of the long answer for why we've split it the way we split it, because we just simply don't have the availability in the springtime to split it evenly.
Does that also impact practice times as well? Because I mean, for the Corvallis girls, they're not even getting home till 9:30, 9:45 twice a week. And it's getting tough. I mean, we're getting to the end of the school year with the kids, but it's been kind of a stretch for a number of them.
Yeah, it definitely does impact times a little bit. It also, depending on what age group you are, it also impacts what time frame and who your coach is. And there's a lot of factors that are impacting the actual practice times. But I'd say field availability does play a pretty big role in when practice times can get scheduled. I mean, you look at, if we get on South Albany, then the availability we have when we schedule practices really depends on what South has available, right? So you're right on the money. That's one of the factors. I'd say coaching availability as well as your age group. The older you get, the more likely it is that you're in a later session, just because the younger kids we don't want to keep out a lot later than they should be. But yes, you're right. That's a big factor.
And we're gonna, like he said, we're gonna be going to, Corvallis, that we're trying to get a turf field in the grants and all that stuff. You can help. And Davin and Aaron, you look pretty smart. Look at Davin with all that crowd behind her at that college lecture. All those people you have connected with, you guys can help us out and get that done.
I don't think you have any problem with us speaking up and helping out, just for the record, in case anyone doesn't know that. Melissa, is that Haley's Melissa on the line?
Yes, sorry. I had to find where the unmute was.
Was there anything that I'm going to invite you to share if there's anything that you would like to say at this moment based off of your experience with your girl?
Each year has been a little bit different, but I know that each year there's been a group that struggled with numbers. So I think that's where we're at, is just, I don't know, trying to recruit more girls or something so people don't struggle with numbers.
And, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
We are
That's
working
just
on that.
the-
We
Yeah.
are working on trying to get more, recruiting. We have, we had some ideas, and I think Bryce can, kind of talk about that more. But I think one of the issues that we have to also be that's going to take, the highest priority is retention of the ones that we have now. We don't
Right.
want to continue to lose, so we want to stop the bleeding, and so we want to make sure that issue is addressed, and we retain them. So we retain them and create a program that they're very happy. They feel very very good about what's happening and how things are moving along. And that in itself kind of brings it a little more, because girls are different than boys. Boys are, selfish. You know what I mean? They're going to kick you when you're down. But the girls, at least the ones I've coached, are always for the team, right? And it's really difficult to break a girls' team. It really is. And once it's formed, it's really difficult to break. But if they break, it's like a pearl necklace, right? You break them and all those little beads just go. Once they go, they go. So the thing is, that's what's happening to the club right now. So we have to retain the ones we have, and work on bringing in more, at the same time working to create a better program and a better environment for them to thrive.
Yeah, that sounds good. I work in the schools and I never see any flyers for OVF come through. I see AYSO and YMCA sports opportunities, but I've never seen like an OVF thing come through our emails or anything. So I don't know if there's a way maybe for the club to advertise a little bit more. And I'm not just saying for our age group, just for
In general,
advertising in general.
Melissa, I'm on the communications committee, and the flyers were released to schools today for tryouts.
Okay.
I think they're coming through email and then posted.
So yeah, those will probably be released on Wednesday then.
Yeah, I think so. I can't remember.
Yeah.
I can't remember the schedule at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah, but in
Nice.
English and Spanish. So.
Okay. Awesome.
that's awesome. That's next week, you said, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they got approved this week by the 3 or 4 different school systems,
Mhm.
And so they should be out next week.
Awesome. That's great.
Thank you.
Janine, you have any questions?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, sorry about that. It fell off my radar. So I know I've come in late, so I don't know really what come before. I did have a big question, and I'm hoping, I know they're going to be recorded, but maybe I'll still ask. You can just tell me if the answer is already out there on the recording eventually, which is what I know this year is challenging. I feel like our age group in particular, and we've been with the club since, I don't know, like Mike was coaching my daughter back in the day and before we merged. And so we've had a mixed experience through the years. We're still in it. My daughter loves to play soccer, but I feel our experience has been a bit of a roller coaster. And so I'm very curious going into this next year, since we're again on this, some of us are going into high school, some of us aren't, what that looks like in terms of current numbers, in terms of those that are going to be in 8th grade and those that are moving on. And what's
Yep.
that going to do for that fall team?
Yes,
Or
we already
fall.
discussed this. Yeah. But I think the nutshell is, you could see it on the recording, but I think the nutshell of that is that there's going to be 2010s that are not going to be going to high school, and there's a possibility to merge with the 11s, some of the 11 players, and create a team for them to play on during that time.
Can you give me
and then-
numbers though? Like surely you guys can look at the current group, whether they retain or not, just based on current systems. What does that look like? How many 2010s are still 8th graders next year?
I think there's 6, if I
I think there's
remember
more than
correctly.
that actually.
Is there?
Yeah, Devin and I were figuring it out the other day. I think there's at least 8.
Can we
Okay.
actually get, I mean, that's something I feel like is a pretty easy, like, n- statistic to know from the club point of view from birth dates. Although I suppose there are kids that may
But
have been
that's-
bumped up in year, but
Yeah,
I'm
'cause
sure you could
Arden-
figure it out.
Arden's birthday would put her in 7th grade, but she's an 8th grader
Yeah, okay,
currently.
and that's why I just caveated. But I appreciate that. But I guess to me, it's like they should know where their grades are, right? Like that's not rocket science. I should be able to know with some, like, cause you just said it, girls like to know who their teams are, they form them together, and now yet again, we're going through the yo-yo, and I think my kid's pretty immune to it at this point. It's been such a rough road over the years. I feel a bruised enough that it probably won't bruise her this time around, but I'm just a priori a little, I want to know. I want to be able to give her some sort of information to say, yeah, this is what it's probably going to look like. And I want to know, okay, now what are you doing to the 2011? I know that my daughter trained with them back when it was like before all this competitive. And because we're not in school years, we're in birth years, you know, that group is a solid team. So who are you going to pull from that group to make some, like, how does that work? Sorry, I realize that. I really am sorry I missed the beginning of this meeting. It just was not my Stack app. I'm sure if Bryce is here knows that I've had struggles with this, so I don't always get the communications.
Yeah. No, we honestly, I don't know much about what is going to be. All I know is that it's been talked about on this before with Blake answering that question. But I know that they're going to, I don't know exactly what's going to happen with the 11s to be able to, if we need to merge and who we're going to be picking out. I don't know. We don't exactly know how that's going to play out. Yet. Don't mean that we won't know, but I think I know, Janine, you probably don't want to hear this, but I think we'll have a better idea of things that are going to be happening and how we're going to be able to address all of these things and create a place where they all can play by the end of tryouts. Right now, we could say 8. Yeah, we can say 8, but we're hoping that but the end of trial, maybe there's maybe more that come in that are 8th graders. We don't know yet. But honestly, I like to keep, like I told them before, if we don't have to mess with any of the teams, I don't want to mess with any of the teams. But then again, if we have 8 players that are trying to find a place to play, then we have to kind of provide something for them as well too. But no, I understand. The pooling of players, and you don't want to dismantle something that's working. Don't fix what doesn't need fixing. I get it. But the concern probably will be is what are we going to do with those 8 players? And that's an issue that we at this time I cannot give you a solid answer. Does that make sense?
No, I mean, I appreciate it. I guess my second follow-up would be how many people are in 2011? And maybe this is that everybody probably asked this at least who has an 8th grader next year. How many people are in 2011? And can you even possibly make 2 teams based on current numbers?
Hey, Janine, I think these are perfectly reasonable questions and things that can be projected from the numbers that they have and the data that they have. I agree with you.
Yeah, sorry. I'm so sorry for missing the earlier part. I know this was, I feel bad for maybe repeating what's been asked, but
Bryce, do you have the numbers? Can you find them real quick?
I think the 11s.
Sorry, what numbers do you need me to look up?
The 11s, the number of the
How
11s.
many 11s and then how many 8th grade 2010s we have currently?
That is a great
11s,
question.
15. I'm
So
looking.
we need
them
to
up
know
right now.
current number of 2011s. Hey,
Yes.
good to see you. Sorry. Current number of 2011s. Gotta find that one first. We have 15 rostered, 1 unrostered in the 2011s group, but I believe there's another one that is Oh yeah, no, it's 15 rostered and 1 unrostered. So I don't know who the unrostered one was or why. Maybe it was a late registration. Then to the 10 girls, we want 10 girls that are going to be in 8th grade. Is that what we're looking at?
Yeah.
Okay. This one may take me a moment, but
I thought somebody said 8.
Maybe, but somebody pointed out that based off the birth year in the state of Oregon, if you're born after September 1st, you're supposed to be in the lower grade. But that's not necessarily always true if you had done a kindergarten situation or you transferred in from another school district. So
Yeah, no, I
that's
think
true.
they look at age pure, so it really doesn't go by grade. I think it's just if you're born in 2010 or 2011, that's all they go by.
So
well,
I
for soccer,
see.
but for the state of Oregon, you
Ah.
would still be in 8th grade if you were born
That's-
between
yeah, yeah, yeah.
September 1, and you could even be in August if your parents chose to keep you back and blah, blah, blah.
So I see in the 2010 girls group, out of the 30 rostered girls, 12 of them or 11 of them are at the birth year where they would be in 8th grade.
That's
So we
26.
don't actually know then that they're in the 8th grade. You're just going off the date, which is
We're just going off of the birth year. And so we've added that question to our tryout registration. That way we can better measure that moving into tryouts. But as of right now, just using the projected numbers, we have 11 that fall into that group.
that was more than I thought. I guess my final follow-up is I'll comment that doesn't seem great for forming 2 teams per se, considering that if we had 30 rostered 2010s, it seems like we're still struggling for numbers in 2010s. And as we snap back into spring season following this, are some of our 2010s playing with 2009 groups, or are we going to keep the core teams somewhat similar to what we have now?
We're going to do our best to keep everybody age pure.
Okay.
That's the goal.
Sorry if I've missed that. I appreciate
No. It's okay. It's okay, Janine. I just want to make sure that we give you what we have. But right now, the idea is to try to keep everybody in their own age group and not move things around unless it's, absolutely necessary. But we don't want to tamper with that. We don't want to create the confusion that we just had. It was a headache for everybody. It was rough for everybody. But with these teams, yeah, we can, I don't, if the numbers are right, if it's 26, you can make 2 teams of 13 and then have 2 players that always want to swing from one to another to help out.
I would like to go on the record and say there's no way those numbers are right. I just want to say that. I'm sorry.
that would speak more to what I see happening, but I guess I don't know where everybody really plays, or if that's actually not the true number of players that are registered. I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, this is just based on the numbers that we just calculated right now, but like I said, we don't know. That's why I'm saying, Janine, I'm trying to give you the best information that I have available. And you also said,
and Victor's right. We can't read the future on this, especially because we haven't gone through tryouts. All we can tell you is those numbers I gave you are based off of current registration and rostered players. It's not any projection. That's currently the numbers I gave you, or it's currently what we have. So what we are going to have, nobody knows.
Yeah.
But I hope we have a lot.
2 different things. Yeah. Does that help, Janine? Somewhat, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I don't. I know we just went around that Rob circle, and I'm sure. Just my personal experience watching the team this year, it seems like we rarely have enough players for even just the single 2010 team that my daughter's on. So I'm not sure where we get all the rostered numbers and where our rosters are playing. If we are currently not playing age pure and maybe we're going to start playing age pure, I don't know. It's fine. Yes, I appreciate the information, and I do appreciate the future is unknown, but as best as I can reasonably project is good to have. Thank you.
Yeah. So we are trying to keep HPRO this coming season. We're trying to keep the teams together. We don't want to dismantle too many of the teams. Like I said, that created too many problems. We went back around in circles, yes, but that's where we're at. I mean, we can't give you any more than what we have right now. But one thing we do know is that we're not going to move players around anymore to shuffle around to shorten other players, to shorten other teams out for any reason at all. That's not going to happen. iPhone 376. You got any questions?
Sorry, I wanted to know.
That's okay. iPhone 376. Nothing. iPhone. Just iPhone. Do you have any questions? Right. Well, Aaron, do you not have any more? Devin, you don't have any more?
Now, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for hearing us out and answering hard questions with the information that you have. And I mean that sincerely. Like, it's always good to have the conversation. So thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, like I said, we want to let you know what we have, and we want to be communicating all the time. At least you're going to get a lot of communication from me, and I'm going to make sure that our coaches are constantly communicating the things that you need to know ahead of time. You know what I mean? So I appreciate that as well.
Yeah. And the calendar, I will say it again, is a great thing. Keep up the calendar. Keep doing it.
Yeah, we're gonna try to send that out. We already have kind of a preliminary look at it, so once we get it solidified, we will immediately send it out so everybody has the idea of what is happening. Let's see. Graf, do you have anything?
I'm good right now. Thanks.
Good. All right, folks. Well, if there's no more questions, again, if you guys want to get a hold of me, if you think of something after this, you can email me, call me. We can meet at the field. We can talk on the phone, or we can just answer our questions on email.
Thank you.
Sounds good? Okay. Thank you,
Yeah,
guys.
thank
See you
you.
guys
Thank
later,
you.
huh? Okay.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye.